Coming tonight. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah Lanzer. I'm one of the people on the board for UXPA KC. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for coming to our panel, Structure of UX. You might notice that there's someone missing because they got sick this past weekend and weren't able to come. So George sends his apologies, but hopefully there will be an event at Crema later this year, so you'll still get to meet and talk with George. But with that, I want to give one quick announcement that the next UXPA event will be at VML down at the downtown Kansas City Airport with our speaker, Leah Sand. I don't know her exact topic yet, but it'll be about content strategy, and it will be super fun. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Saul. And you're ready for the
Hi everyone, I'm Saul Aguilar. I am a human factors researcher here at Cerner. I've been here for almost 5 years, and thank you to Sarah and to Lauren and to everyone at UXPA for allowing me to be a moderator tonight. I'm going to begin by reading the panelists' biographies, and then we'll start right into some questions. We just want to make sure that you know we are taking questions via Twitter, and so if you will have a question, I think they're going to be moderating that, and then we'll be answering and asking the panelists tonight. So, Chrys Wallen is a Con and South by Southwest award-winning design leader with over 20 years of experience in designing user-centered solutions for global brands such as Lucasfilm, Disney, Burger King, Dell, Gatorade, FedEx, Hershey's, Wendy's, Ford, Waste Management, Bridgestone, Colgate, Palmolive, Southwest Airlines, Walt Disney Company.
She asked for the full bio.
Yeah. He has a proven record of taking the evolving field of user-centered design from theory into practice and turning these practices into design approaches that provide value to clients. As a thought leader, he has driven the evolution of VML's shift from waterfall to value-driven processes, resulting in creation of post-UX practice called experience design. So, big hand for Chrys Wallen. Next, we have Chris Sullivan. She is a founder at Kansas City-based UX firm called Useagility. Under her leadership, the company has ranked among Kansas City's fastest-growing companies. She and her team are elevating exposure of user-centered design as critical to success of digital products at established companies and innovative startups. Chris is also an advocate for women in technology workforce and a company culture that supports work-life balance. Welcome, Chris. We got a handful for this one.
I didn't know how to show up to this.
Hope you packed a lunch.
I don't feel so bad now.
Yeah.
I realize this is a roast.
Paul Weaver is Vice President of User Experience at Cerner Corporation, a supplier of health information technology solutions and services based in Kansas City. Prior to joining Cerner, Paul has enjoyed an extensive career of over 20 years in both design and project management, predominantly in the video game industry, but also in the fields of education, language learning, and serious games. Paul started his career at Rare Nintendo in 1995, co-designing Donkey Kong Country 3, and from there he has worked at some of the world's most prolific game studios, including Ion Storm, Visual Concepts, and Junction Point, where he directed Disney's acclaimed best-selling single-platform title, Disney Epic Mickey. As well as his game industry successes, Paul has had a notable accomplishments in more serious industries, including the creation of a line of children's education apps, the redesign of Rosetta Stone's flagship language learning app, a VR medical study related to pain management, and the creation of a simulation for the U.S. Navy to help train crewmen on the launch sequence of planes from an aircraft carrier. In his spare time, amazing habit, as well as enjoying spending time with his wife and 2 children, Paul is an avid amateur photographer and has used his pictures to help raise money to build a basketball court for a school in Rwanda. So thank you, Paul. All right, so we're going to start off by kind of polling the audience a little bit. Raise your hand if you're a designer in any capacity. All right, and raise your hand if you're a developer. We got a few. All right, awesome. And research. All right, I'll raise my hand too. All right, so How many of you work at a company sitting with other designers? All right, awesome. And how many of you wear multiple hats? Are the only designer and researcher at your company? All right, excellent. So we're going to talk today about the structure of UX and kind of get at the core of how to build a team and what makes a strong structure of UX. We're going to start with some rapid fire questions for panelists today. So, Apple or Android?
Apple.
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 All right. Mac or PC?
Mac.
PC for my computer.
Mac.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Oh, Facebook.
Depends, but Facebook.
All right. Form or function?
This is so hard. Function.
All right.
Function.
Function.
All right. At the movies, candy or popcorn?
Popcorn.
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 All right. Cats or dogs?
Cats times infinite.
Cat and dog. Cat and dog.
Meow.
Drawing or painting?
Drawing.
Drawing.
All right. Awesome. So let's start with a little bit of background. So we'll give you a few minutes each to answer this question. How did you end up in UX, and how did you end up in your current role? So feel free to start, whoever wants to start.
I'll start.
Okay.
Well, thank you again, Saul, for moderating this. Thanks for the lovely introduction.
You're welcome.
So I think that's really the route that I took into UX. Most of my career has been in video game design and development. After working at Disney, particularly on the Epic Mickey product, I think from a bucket list perspective, I kind of checked off everything that was left for me in that field, and it left me wondering, what's next, or to at least try something new. As it happens, I bumped into the folks at Rosetta Stone who were looking to move into children's education. We got into a conversation, and it looked like an opportunity for me to basically take the design skills that I learned from games and apply them in a sort of consumer applications. So that was the first leap. Children's education was a very nice sort of tangential move into UX, because we actually took the sort of Common Core English language and created a game around that for children. After that, I actually became the head of UX for Rosetta Stone, and then the next challenge was to take, as Saul mentioned, their basically their flagship product, Totally, which is, for anybody that's seen Rosetta Stone products, it's the big yellow box. It hadn't been updated for something like 10 years, and so they gave me the opportunity to redesign it. And so I took all the principles of design, we moved forward with a small team, and took that on. Now, when Cerner contacted me last year, I felt very comfortable about where I was at Rosetta Stone, and health, I'll let the others talk in a minute, but health has always been a very special area for me, and I felt confident enough for my time at Rosetta that I could apply the same skills and learning in this very different field. So, Saul's moving on. I will hand over to Chrys. You have two Chryses.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'm not from a design background academically, but journalism, which, over time played out to be not so different, from what we do every day, of asking a lot of questions, understanding who your audience is, and finding out the facts and telling a story and kind of putting it all together. But my background is more on the product management side. I got early on, took a role at a startup healthcare insurance company in Kansas City, GeoAccess, which has kind of morphed into, was bought by United Healthcare and Eugenics now.
And at the time, there were 15 people when I started, and UX wasn't really a thing. But I was able to, as the company grew over 5 years and had 400 people when I left, I got to do many things and wear many hats. And one of those was working closely with the development teams and designing products, and we didn't really know the right way to do it, but I knew that I loved it. I went to H&R Block as the product director for tax cut software and the online do-it-yourself online software that was the competitor to TurboTax. And it was then, in probably 99 or 2000, that I became exposed to user-centered design. H&R Block had acquired a software product out of Boston, and they had a team of 10 user experience researchers and designers, trained mostly at Bentley, that were the lifeblood of our only hope against the beast at Intuit. And I quickly realized in kind of my general management role, responsible for sales, marketing, development, product management, that having the software user interface connect with people to help them confidently and accurately prepare their taxes was critical. It just became I loved it, and so I wanted to spend all my time doing that. And in 2008, I started Useagility. I was ready to take a break from corporate and saw that there was really a gap in the marketplace here in Kansas City for user experience designers. We were consistently having to go outside of Kansas City to get talent. I said, well, I'm not a designer, but I know how businesses need to use design thinking, and I know how they need to use user-centered design, and I put together a team of talented people and begin to serve that role here in Kansas City. And so now we're, 15 people at Useagility, a mix of researchers, interaction designers, visual designers, and front-end development.
So imagine a world where dial-up existed. So I actually, my roots actually go back to when Gateway 2000 was a huge force in Kansas City. Oh, I know.
I was a geo-access back then.
Yeah. And so literally we were running into all sorts of problems where, and I'll connect this dot here in a second. Like people were like calling in and they weren't getting into the right spot because they didn't understand that a modem or a modulator demodulator was a modem and a network interface device and all this other stuff. So started actually going and talking to people, what do you call these things? And so I actually started out doing like IVR design, right? Press 2 for this, press 3 for that, not really knowing what I was doing. In '99, shifted over to BML. We just moved over to the airport, and my education was in industrial and cognitive psychology. And we had these clients, and these were like Colgate-Palmolive. These were some big clients, and their approach to anything digital at the time, which meant website, was we will tell you exactly what we want you to know. And I started to go, there has to be a better way to this. And so part of my journey actually spent some time with the folks that later on founded Adaptive Path, and got to spend time with Jeffrey Bean, Mike Knabowski, Peter, and all those cats. And we'd just sit there and have drinks and talk about this thing that they were putting together, which in 2001 they incorporated Adaptive Path. And so literally just through all that dialogue over many, many drinks, started to bring that back to Kansas City and go, there has to be a better way. How do we connect people to, one, how do we get all these young designers to realize that you are not the user, right? If you're thinking about these questions, you are the technorati. You are the 1%. How do you do this for my mom? You'll hear me refer to my mom a lot. Could my mom do this? And then, from there, it just kept growing and growing. And so it went from literally being one guy in Kansas City to now 24 global offices, staff all over the place. And it was just one of these things of, okay, great. So now how would you stand this up if it was in 2 cities? Oh, well, I think we'd approach it like this. Okay, what about a continent? Well, I think we'd do this. And that's where I ended up in the role that I have today. I will definitely say I've been extraordinarily blessed. Because really the person who's all the problems I wanted to solve in the very beginnings of my career, this art director that I worked with, over the years has become our global chief creative officer. And so it's been nice to really, we've always had a seat at the table, not that seat in the discussion around the table hasn't changed. It has. But being able to come in and solve problems and put the human back into it. And that's what I love, is that every 3 years our field reinvents itself and we have to pivot to it. And so that's why, to kind of capstone that, I'm still at VML, been there for almost 18 years.
Wow, thank you very much. So we're going to move into questions that are specific to each panelist. And Chrys, we'll start with you.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you were at VML since '99, so you've been there for a little while, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. How has UX evolved during your time there?
Sure. It really started out with, I always refer to it as the one riot, one ranger, right? The Texas Rangers have a saying, if there's a riot, you only need one ranger. And so it was the hat of many colors. And so, yeah, I had the opportunity to cut my teeth writing discussion guides badly and then getting better at it. Being able to do the your classic one-on-one, talk out loud type usability inquiries. IA, I can't tell you how many bad site maps I made, things that look like solar systems and planets, and it was really kind of that, it was an experiment, right? We just didn't know. We didn't know boxes and arrows yet. That came a couple of years later. And so it was really kind of that approach of, one person, you've got to cover all the bases. And then as we grew kind of to respond to the scale that we were attaining, folks started to specialize. So folks went down the I'm going to be a primary researcher path. And so they developed expertise in doing that. And frankly, they were better at it than if I was, we've grown past that phase of really having it one person to do it all. And so then we split that out amongst the two. I think the biggest change that we've seen is really a couple different things. Designers are now coming in with an appreciation of what user-centered design is. At least they cognitively know what it is. The 25-year-olds, I apologize if I offend any 25-year-olds, they still make stuff super teeny small. They still love low contrast situations. But we've got a curriculum that we can bring them into and really partner it up. So then really the next natural generation was, well, we had a team of UX people. So you had some IA folks over here, you had interaction designers over here, content really hadn't come about yet. And then what we've evolved to today has really been that we're now doing a paired relationship. So in the design agency world, there was always this thought of, you had a writer to be able to tell the story, you had a designer to visually indicate the story. The model that we've gone to is that you've still got that visual designer paired up with a UX professional. So most frequently, that's somebody that has a lot of experience with UI and interaction design. We're now having to get really good at pattern libraries because that's where we're kind of at now. Is the majority of our clients, the platforms they're working with, you don't need to invent a top-down. You can go to Cognifi, you can use their Zen Garden product, and they have 3 top-downs that have been tested by 80,000 people. And they can tell you to the 1,000th of a percent, these work, these don't. And that's really kind of where, if I to finish that off, that's where we're at today. Is 3 years from today, what do we do? What happens to the UI folks through the progression of pattern libraries, enabled through things like Envision and Craft and Sketch, as well as the products that you can get to support Adobe, Drupal, Sitecore, the big 3 experience platforms. So it's really gone from like that one riot, one ranger, to now we're coming together as a team, not in a waterfall fashion, but truly working in Scrum, not just in the dev phase. I think that's one thing that if you haven't, one thing I'd say for all the XD folks that aren't devs, go and at least familiarize yourself with Scrum. We're actually in the process of getting all of our staff actually as Scrum CSM, so certified Scrum Masters, so that we can start to drive the same benefits that devs saw from the early delivery of value of working with software, moving that forward to the design process so we can actually show real working prototypes that deliver value way early on rather than at the very end where you have no time and no budget.
That's great. You touched on a couple topics that we're actually going to be asking you about here in a minute. So the next question is for Chrys Sullivan. In January, PointWorks and Useagility shared a report on the state of UX in Kansas City, covering salaries, company sizes, and UX roles. Tell us a little bit about what motivated you to do this report and how has it impacted your work since then?
Yeah, it kind of, we would get a lot of questions from our clients. What's best practice for, we don't have UX. How do we start? Where do we start? Who do we hire? Or, calls from, companies who need UX and they want, one person who can do everything and have it done in 2 weeks. And it's really probably a 4-month strategic design project just to kind of research concept and iterate at that high concept level. And so it kind of started as a way to educate, to do a number of things, to educate people in our city here about what user experience is, to talk about the different disciplines within it, such as visual design and versus UI development, research. Not that many of us don't wear several hats and should actually. And then to just raise a level of awareness, I think, for people who are young and coming into careers, especially, especially women, who I think maybe it's getting better, but who figure there may not be a career in technology if they're not a developer. And that could not be farther from the truth. We need thinkers who understand products and humans and can design things and be a translator between, user needs, crazy business executives who think they have all the answers by themselves, and the developers who are ready to just get going and do whatever just to be cool. And so, so it's it was a mashup of those things that caused us to do that.
And what's been the reception like?
Good. I think we had so much positive feedback from, you guys. I say whether, from the UX community. This is great information. It has backed up what we thought, kind of our institutional knowledge about, our team, the way we're made up, what we're paid, why it's so hard to find people here. So a great reception from this community. And, I think still though, for those of you, at Cerner and VML, good for you. Good for you that you're in a wonderfully supportive, awesome company that understands and, supports you. A lot of us out there are just, are still working to show the benefits, the bottom line benefits to our companies of why they can be more successful when they involve users sooner rather than later. And so bringing the larger community along, I wouldn't say it's made any massive strides on that, but every little thing we do adds up.
Well, I for one love the report.
Good.
Yeah, so thank you so much for doing that. All right, Paul, you started out in video games a little while ago. You also worked at Rosetta, as we learned, and now you're in health information technology. What are some principles or ideas or trends that have carried over through all of the disciplines when designing for people?
Yeah, I think there's two key things really. I think the first takeaway is interesting speaking with Chrys and Yana as well. One thing about liking video games, I realized, is that designers and creative directors are particularly spoiled, it turns out, because most all of the direction of those products comes through design. So the leadership is somewhat inverted in that field. I think that perspective, rather than kind of holding me back at Rosetta's going on here at Cerner, it's allowed me to be a much stronger advocate for change, because obviously I think with games, if it's not entertaining, engaging, all of the things that we really need any product to be, then you die. So with that, it's allowed me to kind of come in and to do a pretty wide-ranging change in terms of approach, in terms of organizational structure, and other. The other element, I think, with Saul and human factors is that the very nice thing also, which I don't see from video games, in this field in particular is ego. Games field can be very, very ego-driven indeed. I myself am a little guilty of this when it comes to human factors, because I think it was only about 2009, 2010 that I actually embraced the concept of user research, and that was on Disney FFP. When you consider creative directors rule the roost, so we can do no wrong and we're always right, to a design team that feels pretty much the same way, to a development team that's in it because they love games, to a QA department who you can leave or understand are there to enforce quality. It led to this sort of natural defensiveness of, well, why do we need to go out and just ask a bunch of people what they think of it? So my moment of realization and horror was sat behind a one-way mirror, watching a bunch of school kids play our game and get stuck in the second room of the game, which QA could get through in about 35 seconds, and we watched and watched and watched in complete horror for 45 minutes as the kids got more and more frustrated and couldn't get out of this room. And it's basically like going through the 5 stages of grief, I think it is. So that moment you want to bang the glass and abuse people, and then just acceptance kicks in, and then you're already working on a plan by the time you get back to the office. And I think that's those well, I guess that's more than 2 elements, but I think that's the big thing that crosses over is that I'm very blessed that we can feed off to my team here, that I have a very humble but very talented team. There is a complete embracing of user research and human factors, and we're allowed to push for quality and iteration as we go. But that quality is defined by the actual user experience, not necessarily by us. We try and get as close to perfect as we can, but then validate it.
Yeah, as a researcher, we definitely appreciate the recognition every now and then. So we're gonna shift topics to the title of tonight's presentation. So we're going to talk about the team structure. So as the definition of UX and the scope of technology is always changing, the structure of UX teams in organizations is also adjusted as well. Creating the best structure has been quite a hot topic in the industry lately. And companies like Spotify and Capital One Labs and Slack have weighed in. Some main structure types are centralized, where all designers sit together and work together, and they consult within the company. Or you have decentralized, which is designers and researchers are embedded within the project teams. And then you have a hybrid, which is a combination of the two. The centralized design group creating standards and directives, as well as designers sitting on product teams. So with that in mind, this is an open question to all the panelists. Can you tell us a little bit about how your organization is structured? Maybe a little bit about the size of your design team, number of designers, developers, and researchers?
I'll take a crack at it first. So from an organizational standpoint, within the broader sense of user-centered design, we've got about 30 researchers across North America. So about 5 of those are in Kansas City, and as well as secondary and primary research. So that kind of handles a lot of our, is this the right problem to solve validation, right? We'll form hypotheses as a team. Work with those folks to find out, okay, is this actually a problem that it is a problem? And then from there, we actually use a couple different of those team organization structures. So the next large discipline that we have is what we would call experience design. We found out that when we grew globally, we actually had to split out UX from everything else. We're dealing a lot of situations where some of our offices, less than 1 or 2% of the staff speak English. And so a lot of times what we were finding is we were trying to go in like full bore, full user-centered design. They're asking for UX. And what we learned through those lessons was that that meant usability testing. They actually just meant research. And so we found that particularly prevalent throughout our offices in Africa, into the Middle East, and Pac Rim. Europe, a little bit of a different story. So we've got an experience design group, which is going to be what you think of as designers. So we have some information architects, we have interaction designers, we also have just your kind of traditional UX design types. We don't subscribe to the I theory at all. It's really about being a team. You need to be good here, but then you need to also have a wide variety of skills across the top so that we can matrix you in with other folks that might be better at something else. Like maybe they're really good at working with and creating component libraries and then maintaining those. Okay, pairing that up with somebody who's supposed to drive innovation because we're doing something that's never been done before. The third large group is actually our fastest growing practice group, which is content systems. I think Leah will be talking about that. She leads our content systems practice. That was actually it came out of some rough times that we had over the last couple of years with personalization. So we would go in, we would work with business owners, they would be like, we need all these personalized segments, and we need this personalized content, and you would get to the end of it, and you would hand them an algorithm that had 1,000 different variables in it. And then we would go our merry way, and then they'd be like, hey, what's this algorithm thing you guys gave us? Well, that's your personalization right there. And so really what content systems was about, we don't necessarily call it, we don't position as content strategy, we position as content systems, is all about helping our clients who are using programmatic publishing platforms to get a return on investment from it. And so if you go in with Drupal, right, you get your dev cost, but it's open source. You jump to Sitecore, now you're talking $250,000 to $500,000. Full Adobe is north of $20 million. And so what we do is actually work with them to figure out, okay, is this a content operations problem? Like, you don't have anybody to do these things? So we really take almost a professional consultation approach. So we're still working towards personalization, but we're now couching it in where are they at? Where's their user at? We have a good handle of do these people really exist and what they need. Now what's actually our means to do it? And we start out with 1, and then we start out with 2 and 3. I jokingly said to my boss at this 18 months ago when we started this, well, by July we'll have probably 20, 25 people. And I was making a complete joke, and now, interestingly enough, we may end up there. Content systems is going to be a huge, huge push in our field over the next 5 to 10 years. I'll throw my little future vision thing out there. Like the rise of pattern libraries and the economy of scales that you get from that truly gets the design folks, which I on the design side of those things, out of reinventing a wheel that has been reinvented hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times across the world. So then it frees us up to actually focus on the 20% of the things that haven't been solved. So that's kind of like what we're trying to work through right now is what's the balance between those things. On the content side, those programmatic publishing platforms are not going anywhere. I'm not going to say that Drupal is the future or that Adobe is the future or whatever, but those are the engines by which commerce is getting done, business is getting done. The appeal of rational personalization, not trying to personalize to the all, but to the right few and having an impact. And so that's really the third dominant practice group that we have within, at least my purview within BNL. Again, if you're not familiar with working with pattern libraries, getting familiar with like component and then components to templates and publishing in that dynamic fashion, you need to start getting more comfortable with it. Our clients right now, I think all clients are struggling with this, and that they are looking for, they want us to design an oil painting. Show me the oil painting, I want it to be perfect, and when it's perfect, I'll tell you if it's perfect or not. And then you're out of time, you're out of budget, and nothing got launched. Whereas really what the only metaphor I've found that's resonating so far with clients is that you're actually buying a box of Legos. So you've got some 2x, my kids are really into it, so if I get nerdy, somebody wave at me. Right, so you got bricks, you got 2x3 bricks, you got 2x2 plates. And so you can make a car, you can make a palm tree, you can make a truck. And so what we're trying to drive forward to produce value for our clients is having a conversation with them that you're not buying oil paintings, you're buying a box of Legos, and you can just move stuff around. and we can form hypotheses. We can now truly put things in front of your actual consumptive audience, see how they react to it, and pivot, versus kind of this thought of I'm going to build the art gallery and hopefully people like
it. Okay, so here at Cerner we are at or around 55 people in UX right now. The human factors team is 9, including administration. The rest of the team are predominantly interaction designers and a combination of visual designers. We are based predominantly here in Kansas City. We also have a team in Philadelphia and a very small team in Bangalore as well. In terms of the structure and the setup of our team, I think we've taken a sort of a slightly different approach with how things are going. There's an evolution in place here at Cerner as well. I've joined the team as it's grown predominantly over the last 5 or 6 years. The work, for the most part, was kind of tactical. So development team leads what UX comes in, makes the change, upgrades, and they move on. Again, I think the sort of the video game design background and the change that we made was that when a designer gets to a certain level of experience, they get that overall holistic view where they're not just thinking about the individual kind of workflow moments, but they can take that step backwards and look at the entire product and the design of the product. With that, we have a senior team, and they're in what we call our UX strategy group. And that group is basically trying to get 1 to 2 years ahead of the solutions that we're making basically complete designs in a modern and a consistent style across the board. So the thinking is, if we can get the workflow design done, we can engage with human factors, we can validate and keep validating without the pressures of time hitting us. So by the time engineering get to the point where they're implementing, they've basically got something that nothing's guaranteed, but our best guarantee of work being done once. That's the ideal and the dream to be executed. We also have a future team, which is our innovation team, and essentially this is a relatively small group today, but we have software engineers, data scientists, designers, and they're basically looking 5 to 10 years out within our field, and we can really sort of explore and investigate the real what's next and what's out there. So that sort of ability to look at tech blogs, look at things that are coming hot, and then actually get the prototype, and even dare I say it, play around with some concepts again to see what sticks, and then pushing that into our strategic business units, the business of Cerner, to be able to evolve that and make a business case for these things to become reality. Last but not least, back to human factors. Thank you again. I'm going to keep giving you the plaudits all night.
I'll be here all night.
But human factors have basically envelop all of this. So none of these initiatives can go forwards without the human factors support. So whether it's 10 years out or it needs to be done next week, we validate everything where we can.
Yeah, so real quickly, I think I'll just draw some similarities from both of these angles. Our engagements at Useagility are primarily at that initial strategy phase. So our teams, our engagement teams are usually anywhere from 2 to 4 individuals and attacking kind of the very front end strategy for our clients. So it's a brand new greenfield product, or perhaps it's an existing platform or group of systems that are kind of being brought together, and we're doing initial research and discovery, and then quickly getting to concepts and prototype testing very, very early. So that's, the nice thing, I guess, about having my own company is I can maybe decide, decide kind of what kind of things we're going to do or not do. And we believe in user-centered design and putting concepts and prototypes in front of users early and often, and that's the way we operate. so that after 3 rounds of testing concepts and then getting to a framework, we've kind of designed strategically how a very complex application, most of our work is in the business-to-business enterprise or complex consumer technology. We've tested this. We tested multiple just completely different mental models for approaching something, found the one that works for the majority of people and drives the business behavior, or really the business of shaping the behavior of the end user in a way that is good for the user and is good for the business. And that's kind of more on the strategy angle. And then once you get to kind of the componentizing of the UI and implementation of visual design, then that gets a little more tactical. And that's where sometimes so you can do the centralized notion of like drawing on a centralized team for strategy and framework and innovation. And then you really want somebody who can kind of take that and implement on a more day-to-day basis with a team, which is where sometimes that decentralized approach really works well.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like the common theme throughout that is research is pretty prominent through everything that you do, which is fantastic to hear, because obviously it probably wasn't like that all the time, but we learned from Paul. So with that in mind, in what capacity is research incorporated into your design and development, and what types of methodologies do you incorporate when you're doing research for your products?
Yeah, I'm going to jump a little first on this. I'm a big proponent, and granted, we're small teams working either, augmenting a larger company centralized, team, or working as the only UX team a mid-sized company might have. So that's that perspective. It's definitely different. But I'm a big believer in integration of research and design, because otherwise it's very hard to get into the flow of iterative design test. And I think if you separate even the formative research too much from the design thinkers and the strategists, I mean, as a designer, while you're watching and listening to people, you're beginning to get ideas about how this thing could fit together. And so you slow things down and kind of lose things along the way. Not that there aren't effective ways to share research. But we move so quickly through iterative design test, that they have to be together on one team. So, I'm a big proponent of keeping people closely looped in.
Well, you mentioned, the data science, and that's where what we're trying to get our arms around is how do you integrate the quant and the qual. And so there's so much benefit that you get from physically bringing people into the room. And, what we're wrestling with is there's also, I'll think of a client I was working with earlier today. We also have the ability to literally listen to the millions of choices made every month with their product. Tell us what's important, what's not important, map that back to business value, right? Because we have to, I think one thing that does get lost in the user-centered design world is there's multiple constituencies that we have to fulfill. We certainly have to take care of our users. We also have to take care of our business stakeholders. And so that's where you have to walk that line. It's what I like about the quant and the qual, is there's no easier way. I had to work with a client the other day. Would love to tell you who it is, but I can't. And literally tell them that one of their most central brand pillars of heritage that they love, they cherish it like a child, and to sit there and literally tell them, here's the deal. We've listened to hundreds of thousands of your consumptive audiences, the people actually wanting to engage with you. They don't care. All right, go into that team of C-level executives and literally tell them your most precious thing. They don't care. You will never be able to get them to do this. I get it. But here's the good news. They do care. When you do these 3 types of things, in this case what we're doing is putting out hypotheses of different content topics for folks to interact with, and then there was cases functionality tied to those different content things that we're putting in the marketplace. When you do these 3 things, they love it. They're engaged with you literally 8, 12, 15 minutes. So which one do you want to do to generate value? Then what we do is actually bring it back to the consumptive audience. If we're looking at like the aesthetics, if we're looking at, do you like this design over this design? Do you like this type of navigation metaphor over this one? So we'll still do that. But what I'm finding, I don't have an answer to this, is how do you marry up that like millions of decisions? To be able to go back to a C-level business stakeholder and literally go, I'm not the one who says they don't care. This is your million users that don't care. How would you like to redirect their energy? And here's how they would like you to engage with them. So we haven't figured it out. I think we're definitely in a period of transition. And this isn't necessarily even, I know that you guys are going incredibly deep on the data science, but this is just a superficial level of like, it always goes back to like time to task completion, which always made me laugh. It's like, if you give them things that they want you to provide for them, and you make it easy to do, they like you better. We'll do the same thing with data, and then be able to tell that story, and it gets you out of that weird zone of like, your child is ugly, and then you get shot, right? Versus, I'm not telling you that. Your child, I love your child, but these million people, they're saying.
I'm curious, since both Chrys and Chrys, you're working with clients, do you find it difficult to sell research as a part of the process when working with new clients? Or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, no. I think what's hard sometimes is to sell user-centered design. And so some clients just want design. They just want you to listen to what they want and what they want to build and what they think the end user wants. And, a lot of people can do that. And I don't believe that it's the way to optimize and maximize a business's revenues and their profits and their loyalty to their customer. I just don't. And so we won't do it. Either you're bought in that business, you're going to get dividends paid back in multiple by involving users, or you don't choose to work with us, and that's okay. And on the research, even quantitative data kind of can tell us where things are broken or what people are using and not using, but it's still that qualitative that you have to understand how to fix it and what they're thinking and what they wanted to feel instead. Once we get into a flow with users and they watch studies and they listen to the recaps and they see the modifications that come out and they can see how that goes into their prototype and it makes so much sense. They don't think of it as us telling them that their baby's ugly. They think of it as finding the truth of how to make it better. But it's a hurdle getting over it initially.
I think what is considered research by clients is broad.
Yeah.
And so, I don't have any fights about, hey, let's do a deep dive in your analytics. Let's go take a look at how people are actually connecting with you through search engines, right? What are the concepts and the terms that they're using? I would throw that into that. I mean, it's just secondary research. It's just a different lens on it. So we really haven't really been having to be challenged on that front. I will say that we are getting on the qualitative stuff. Yeah, we're getting challenged on that because now people are seeing our big numbers, and within the client set that we work with, we'll make a modification, we'll push it overnight, and then we'll see what was the impact over the next 12 hours. And so it's very much the it's not the full San Francisco model of blindly form a hypothesis, get some ideas, throw a hypothesis out, pivot, right? We have a kind of good idea where we want to go, what folks want, but then really getting into it and going, oh, okay, well, we'll throw that at 100,000 people tomorrow and see what happens, and then pivot, So for us, I think it's a different challenge because we'll have clients go, we get them from qualitative or from quantitative as well. It's just the speed at which you can get things in the market and to see what it does dictates a lot of that. If you've got a slower goal, I would do qualitative all day because there is still nothing in the world that is compelling as having the stakeholders say, watch the highlight reel of somebody just knock their head into the wall over and over. That second room scene, I had all lived that, where it's like, dude, it's right there. Swipe it. It'll be great.
Yeah. I think from my standpoint, I think first it's lovely and refreshing to hear such honesty. I've had to do due diligence on companies, and while it's lovely to hear hear this, the reality is there are a lot of companies out there that will say or do whatever it takes to get the deal, and they don't actually believe in these things. So, if and when you're moving on and looking for a new move, make sure you kind of get a good feel for the organization, because if you care about design and you end up with an organization like that, it's a pretty miserable experience all around. So kudos to you guys. Back to Saul's original question, I think not to sort of call everything like data analysis, but I think user research and human factors up front before a product is live is one type of data. If you manage to put in the right hooks into your actual software, you can then drag the information from the analytics after the product is live. So, the ideal is to actually have end-to-end data informing your decisions, because without it, this, again, coming back to my world of creating box products, literally cartridges, CDs, you get one chance, you make it, it goes out there. If it's a terrible product, you're done. When I got to Rosetta Stone and got to work in mobile, it was just this really enlightening and wonderful moment of, wait, we can keep fixing it after the fact. That's awesome. But it was really interesting to be there and have people not embrace analytics and the implementation of analytics into the software. Because I just got to the logical end state, which is, okay, we can keep fixing it, but if we have 1 million users, we don't know where it's going wrong, we're shooting in the dark. We're back to just being a small design team, hopefully making the fixes that we need. So with that in mind, up front, I think it's a mixture of qualitative research. Now, I'm a big proponent of emotional design and the aesthetic, the feel. And again, back to honesty, if you're going to get people in to test the product and use it, you're looking for their emotions. I'm not looking at a qualitative test for the user did this on this screen and this on this screen and this button is moving. It was, I really love this, or my God, this thing frustrated me. Those are the key things that we're looking for from the qualitative. On the quantitative side of things, I think it's about getting our kind of workflow designers out there to the masses. But at that point, it's about the data. It's literally creating a graph and saying, of the 100 users that tested this, 90 of them made it past the sign-in screen, 80 of them made it past the next screen, 70 of them made it past the next screen. Where are we? The combination of card sorting to say, on that face-up screen, are they easily finding what we intended for them to find? Being able to create, click heat maps to see where people are clicking on the screen. When we say the search box is up there in the top right, and everybody's going to find it. To get that validation, across 100 users or 1,000 users, is pretty remarkable and pretty awesome. And I think again, the reminder is, if you get design in early enough, you're doing all of this validation before a line of code gets written. That, like from an ROI perspective, it's just like crazy money saved. On the tail end, once the product is live and the analytics are hooked up, people talk a lot about KPIs. That was, again, if you have KPIs, you have to have analytics to tell you whether you are succeeding or failing in whatever it was. It's like there are 4 now data sources that I think about the product once it's live. So there's business intelligence, or are we making any money? Performance intelligence in terms of the application is running at the speed that we want it to. User performance intelligence, which is particularly in something like health. Are people getting better? Are they improving at what they're doing? And then there's design intelligence, back to the buttons and the flows, but being able to look at the data for the last month and see how many people are coming back to the application. How many, where that exact drop-off occurs for users. And this is like, you live in been wonderful times. This is like crazy cool data to have as a designer. I have met resistance to this along the way from people who don't want to take the data side of it because they're saying it's replacing, creative directors and designers, which is crazy to me. It's like it's augmenting us as designers. It's allowing us to get to a place where we can almost
It lets us use our time so much better by focusing in on where the problem areas are and monitoring.
Exactly.
I think it's great. It sounds like you're all proponents of evidence-based design, which is, I think it's a term that is kind of becoming a little bit more prolific as we're moving on. So it's great to hear. Looks like some of them got some water for you all. If you'd like to, before we transition to our next
I
topic.
talk with my hands, so I'm like, I can't hold my water and talk at the same time. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is UX roles. It seems like the definition of designer has evolved quite a bit since the early 90s and even since the history of Park and Xerox. What types of roles do you have on your UX or design team? And what are the new roles that you're seeing emerge in the industry?
I'll jump in there. I kind of hit like how we were structured, kind of maps to our roles. I think we're definitely trying to figure out how to handle the rise of the taxonomist. And the taxonomist, it kind of has gone through I'd love to actually get your thoughts on this. Like 15 years ago, we saw like, oh, we need taxonomy, like for everything. Not actually realizing what utility it actually brought. What we're trying to deal with now is we've got clients that are pushing us to how do you decouple content from a hierarchical organization system. So I'll break that down again. How do you literally produce a body of content that has no IA? That by divorcing that content layer, all sorts of possibilities happen. Now you can push all sorts of rich content through interfaces like Alexa. Or you can push it through AI, or you can push it through even something as simple as like a chatbot, right? We've not cracked the code on it. I think definitely the taxonomist is going to be coming back. It's how do you bring utility to those very hardcore library sciences people. I think the second area with the role focus, so that's kind of the future-looking thing, right? Where we got to figure out, we have to figure out how do you do that full decoupling from IA. To be able to power all these technologies that are just a handful of years into the future. They're going to be, they're showing up on our phones, they're showing up on our speakers, they're going to be in your cars. How do you do that? Secondly, how do we continue to drive value from, when you have a client with a large scale, right? You do get there's some different challenges than when you go in with that 5-person team and you are educating them and getting that business, that B2B player up to speed. The scale changes. And so for us, it's about all too often a system integrator will come in, we're going to build you this, pick an app, it could be an app, it could be a digital experience, it could be a digital ecosystem of experiences, and then they walk away. And then our clients are left with no route to providing ROI. Nobody ever told them they needed to hire people to do these things or to hire someone to do it for them. And so there's almost this focus it's starting to become sharper about it's almost like UX ops. Right? You've probably heard of web ops, probably heard of design ops. And it's now us helping operationalize user-centered design with our clients and then allowing them to push that deeper into their organization. I think the first step is that kind of content systems group. We have a couple different roles within that. We've got the folks that are really driving the professional services side of it, working with those clients, going deep into what is your process like, what is your culture, really being experts at working with the stakeholders and working with their consumers to really drive into that. And then literally, we've created this role over the last 18 months called a content administrator. And literally what they're doing is we're hiring folks with journalism backgrounds Usually they have strong editorial skills. And what they're literally doing is working with the pattern library, right? We need to publish something new for the client. Could be new functionality, could be new piece of content, making some type of touch point in that ecosystem. But they're not really UI designers, because what they're doing is they're grabbing proven components out of an already established pattern library and then publishing that out into the digital ecosystem. So that could be a page generated by Adobe, driving into Facebook, going into a chatbot, and then also driving into an app. And so what we've done is we've changed the role of the UI designer to really be focused on what is that hardest 20%. So on the other side, on the UI side of things, we're not, as I mentioned before, once we've got the right wheel, we need to go to that thing that hasn't been solved yet. How do we create that thing? I love Facebook's saying about thumb stopping. What's that thumb stopping experience? Is people are living their digital life and they're just kind of, what is that thing where they're going to stop? Right? That's the thumb stopping moment. How do we design and engage with that, working with that research team to understand what those moments are? I love that you mentioned the emotional design, right? Leveraging those principles, working with those researchers to bring that to life.
Sounds like you're trying to solve some wicked problems.
It scares me sometimes, to be honest with you, but yeah.
I think from my side, I think quick answer for a change. We predominantly, I think, have interaction designers, visual designers, combination of the two, human factors. Within Cerner's setup, we also have a creative team as well, which are outside of my span. That's where we'll find our content writers and website designers as well. But I'm hoping we can bridge that gap, because content writing is nice to hear about your journalism background, but establishing a tone for what you're creating is very important as well, and really feeds into that emotional element. Not only that, but obviously consistency about the words and the terms that you're using as well. We've got a few pretty amazing head of specialists on our team who cross over into technical design ability, almost the programmer designer hybrid. They're very special people. The long evolution for us is for our team to learn from each other, to grow, to get up to that senior level where they essentially will become product designers, to be able to look at the big picture, create applications as we go forward.
Yeah, because we have our team are interaction designers, visual designers, and user experience strategists primarily. And then, so that you hit on kind of the product strategist, and I think that's I hope that there are more opportunities over time for designers who are beginning to kind of, and may focus only on one thing, and at a tactical level, to be able to be in a position where you can think very strategically about the core foundational framework of an application. We do a lot of work in the online learning space for learning management systems and virtual classrooms and predictive modeling of test outcomes. Also, kind of health information, performance, healthcare performance analytics with 3M healthcare, and having people who can see an entire ecosystem across multiple user types and understand the business drivers and the economics behind the scenes, and then put together truly different product concepts. Not just a different IA, but truly different product concepts. And that's, I hope that there are more and more opportunities for designers here locally to develop that skill set.
Well, we've kind of gotten in the weeds quite a bit on the UX structure, and it's been a really awesome conversation. I want to make sure that we have enough time to give to the audience. But before we move on, I know we have some students in the audience, or maybe those that are looking to break into the UX industry. So, broadly speaking, what advice do you have to give someone who's interested in getting into UX?
That's a good question. Well, I think think I'll actually relate this to my son. My son's about to become a J-hole, and for the last few years, he's trying to work out what he wants to be when he grows up. And he originally wanted to sort of get into game design. I frankly talked him out of that because it's such a that sounded bad, but I think the key is a game design degree, spending 3 or 4 years in a very narrow field, doesn't give you serviceable and extensible skills. That if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, then what do you do next? So I think the conversation I had with him is, look, is there something that you love doing, or you're really passionate about? Because that's what you should zero in on, and basically follow your major or your minor in that. Because it doesn't matter where you end up or what industry you'll be in, you'll be following something that you're passionate about. And to have the backup skills is the way to go.
I used to my thinking on this has changed over time. I used to think, have your first job, so whatever, graduating, go for a small company where you can play a lot of roles, wear a lot of hats, do a lot of different things. As I think, just getting in the door somewhere where you can do something that has to do with designing might be a great step, but I used to say, avoid a company like Cerner, where you might get to another. Hold on. That where you might get exposure too narrowly focused and not, be able to experience. And I think exactly the opposite now, which is that. Companies like Cerner, like VML, others that have DST and some others that have more mature UX teams, and also organizational structures that prioritize experience design and not just marketing customer experience, but true user experience strategy. You might have your role as a junior interaction designer, but you get to see what's going on. You get to see what the human factors team is doing. You understand how all of this plays together. And I think you jumpstart your career having a much more broad picture of the way a high-functioning, design-oriented company works. So that would be my advice, is to go someplace where they're doing it right and it's mature.
I'll second that. Because it's really easy to go, the passion part, and I think it's still true. I can't tell you the number of interviews and phone screens and things like, so why did you want to get into this? Oh, that's cool. I'm serious? No, I'm not. I wish I was making that up. These are people graduating from great schools across the nation, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're probably not right for VML, and you might want to rethink what you got your degree in. But and then I'm totally going to steal that, by the way, because it was a really elegant way to put the idea of starting out and seeing a wide variety of experiences. I always like to. I have a reputation with my team for using colorful metaphors. Right, the most powerful person at the sausage factory is the person who literally has worked in every position at the sausage factory. Nobody wants to go in the sausage factory, but if you actually know how the sausage is made, you're all the better for it. I like your version better. Much more elegant, right? Because that's the thing, is people don't want to sometimes see the points of intersection between human factors into a design process. People don't want to see the grinding of the gears where if we have creative directors. We've got, 180 some odd visual designers running around our Kansas City building. Right? You're going to have to work with that friction. You're going to have to understand how those points of integration, how your point of view is complementary to them. And just as important as their point of view is being complementary to your own, it's vice versa. Right? So I do like coming in, because I used to actually say the same
I used to think,
go small, go with the boutique.
It's easier in Japan, and then next thing you know, you're just,
Right, the first time
you're just mocking up what someone else tells you to do, or coding front end. As experience as you can for, under no sort of strategy or user-driven.
Yeah, the skills that you pick up, the interpersonal skills that you pick up, the first time, and I've seen it with staff that, they just graduate, they come in. There's somebody with frankly 3 years of professional experience that they think is some grizzled dinosaur. And the first time, like, oh, this sucks. And they just, they rip it up and they're like impressed upon it. And so by having that broader experience and then coming in, you can always go into a boutique. And you're going to be highly valuable to, if you hang out your own shingle, if you go with a more pure play firm, those skills scale down really, really nicely. But the flip side doesn't actually occur. And so I know that it's so funny that it's a longer road. I want to, because I've known you a long time, and I really appreciate the fact that you landed there to be able to validate kind of where I could head.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Thanks, Bob.
It sounds like underneath that all is willingness to learn and be open to taking those new roles as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to now move to questions from the audience. And it looks like we got some questions that may have come up on Twitter. Yep. All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So when we go open forum, just a reminder, our panelists do work with high-end clients and probably have a lot of intellectual property that they would not like to talk about. So please make sure that you're generalizing and just generalizing your questions so that we don't accidentally reveal too many secrets tonight. So, all right. So this one comes from Jillian. So is this to the whole panel? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. How does your UX team work with agile development?
Yes.
Yeah.
To make it really simple, ideally, there's always there's an extended design, extended set of design work at the beginning of a project. So, business owner, product management, kind of determining the general framework of an application. IA, key workflows, interaction design, visual style, test, you've done some level of testing, and then you start chunking it off. And usually, after that high level is set, then you kind of chunk things out, and the designers stay about 2 weeks ahead of the development team. So we can prototype something out, test it, refine it, and shoot it off to our development team.
So I'll take a different tack, because we do very similar to that. I think the two things that we've been really focusing on, like I shared earlier, is trying to get everybody familiar with at least the basics of Scrum. Really, because we do work with a lot of external clients, and I can't tell you the number of meetings that go into it. It's like, well, we want you to work Agile. Okay, which one? Agile.
Yeah.
Hey, that's super
I
cool.
almost put it in quotes, but I thought maybe.
I assume quotes always anytime someone says Agile.
Yeah, and so, but being able to call BS when somebody drops big A Agile, right? To be able to go, okay, are you want to do Kanban, or you want to do Scrum, or are we doing QM? How do you guys work? And you see the eyes glaze over on the client side, and you're like, okay, now we have the opportunity to shape how we want to deliver value. For us, we focus predominantly on Scrum. We do have a couple of Kanban teams running around. But one, legitimizing is the client actually know what they're asking for. Are they culturally equipped to be able to handle what we're asking for? I mean, even when we did Pure Play Waterfall, we were running it 5-8 times faster than they were accustomed to handling. And now we're going to bump that up to a couple, hey, you're going to be available to us 8 hours a week, guaranteed. It's in the scope. Or we're going to have to figure something out, product proxies, things like that. So one, always like being familiar with it. Two, having it be from day one. It's not something where like Sprint 0 starts and they stand up the dev environment. No, we're informing, we keep the consistent terminology with Sprint 0 as used in a classic Scrum sense, but we've got a Sprint 0 for what we're doing from a UCD standpoint and a design standpoint, and we're working in a narrative fashion there. And so we do, again, if you haven't, go do one of the Scrum certificate courses or something like that. It will save you so much pain in the long run. Because I think that people assume it's a methodology, and it is, but it's actually a value delivery philosophy. And that's the part that people miss, is it's finding that you make 800 mistakes in the first couple of sprints, so that when you do launch it, it's not a disaster. The fact that if you have a product that frankly is unmarketable, you find that out in sprint 2, not at the, when you launched it at waterfall fashion and there's no money left in it.
So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is I think just a cautionary tale about waterfall. I switched career paths in '99 and became a project manager for quite a few years. I can remember my Microsoft project manual and again charting the crap out of the task list and then linking tasks and then creating this kind of beautiful plan, which took a pretty long time to put together. And then I think 1 week into development, it's all broken, and you then have to go in and remove all of those things and move things around. So I am not a pro waterfall advocate whatsoever. However, I think the important thing from waterfall, which we are pushing here in a light fashion at Cerner, is that it is important to try and establish the scope of the product that you're working on. Particularly if you're kind of coming in from that product design standpoint. If the client requirements are too high and it's like maybe something that floats, if you put a plan together that's a rowing boat and their expectation was the Titanic, you've got like a pretty massive mismatch. Particularly then if you have to deliver it in a month and it's actually going to take 9 months. So that's the kind of waterfall elements that I think are important. The other one is the aspect of the critical path. So there's a very idealistic view that everybody can do every task, and that's not the case, particularly when it comes to specialized engineering. So sometimes it's about getting those tasks that only the one person can do, and doing the old-fashioned link to see what that real end date is. From a product management standpoint, it then allows you to prioritize the work out where your MVP is, and then obviously let the client know the reality of the situation when they can start expecting to see things. On the agile side of it, it's iterative development. I have never in my career seen a project plan at the beginning of the project be anything close to the project plan at the end of the project. So you must never get hung up on the details. But that broad scope, that's really important. Koreans, that's the quickest route to having people just stop. So I hope nobody's in that situation. That's all I got to say.
If I'm kind of interpreting the question a little bit differently, I apologize, but I think that designers play a really critical role in developing, the IP for products. I mean, a lot of some companies are even taking that. I'm thinking earlier this week, or as last week, I was on a panel with the founder CEO at Bloom, the 401k. Their business model is a user experience differentiated. It is differentiated by the user experience. They're not doing anything that's hugely new or different that other companies aren't doing. They're doing it in a way. They're delivering it in a way that is, an entirely different experience. So the user experience is the business model. It is the IP, and I think that's happening in a lot of places. It's very exciting.
There's a couple different ways you could take that. I mean, there's the IP of the business model. I think that's something that's a lot easier of a row to hoe. When you start going on the patent route, unless you're working in a bleeding edge technology, literally everything that is patent trolls. We've all read the stories. They're all out there. Trust me, I've had to do my share of having to do my thing for the company in regards to those things. So that's where it gets different. There's differentiation between the IP that you come up with that's not the patentable stuff, and then you get to the patentable stuff that's really the defendable stuff. People don't appreciate what the priorities of the business are in driving that forward. It's very expensive. Almost always you're having to patent in more than just the United States. And sometimes, I hate to break this, it's not the client's interest to go and spend the tens of thousands of dollars it will take to do all the documentation to then make that happen. On the flip side, the IP of the model, of the product, of those things that you can then put into a body of work and go out to the marketplace, somebody at some point will likely steal your stuff. I've seen it. I literally have had that happen with folks here in town, and what I love about our field is it's still a small field. And so we had somebody send over work to us, and I was like, that's funny, I'm pretty sure that we did that. And then went and actually got the designer who did that and brought them into the interview. So just plan on, yeah, it went about that well is the look on your face. Plan on that happening, but also plan on the more that you're connected in the community, the more insurance, if you will, that if somebody's doing that, you're gonna find out. It's just, that's what I love about the Kansas City community is it's growing. We're more diverse in skill set and viewpoint than ever before, but it's still small enough that, you know what, you gotta be nice to everybody.
All right, thank you. So that wraps it up. Thank you, panelists, for all of those really thoughtful answers. I hope we all learned a lot. I know I did. Thank you to the audience that offered up questions. And see Sarah or Lauren. She has some cool prizes for you for those that ask questions. So it looks like we have one dissenter over here.
Yeah, sorry, another question. What's your opinion on Chief Design Officer, Chief Experience Officer? Do you think that has a place as design continues to have more thought, or do you think the existing executive framework is sufficient?
It really, to me, comes down to what's the seat that you already have at the table. Because I have worked with folks that have that title, but it's more of a consolation prize title. Like, in all honesty, they're not really an advocate for it. It's like, oh, hey, here's a new C thing, or chief people officer. And that's where that, unfortunately, is diluting what the power of those three letters are, at least in the States. I would much rather see a highly engaged CMO or some other type of C-level officer that's engaged just driving it forward. I don't really care what the title is. The other idea that we have along with that is that a lot of times, I don't know, sometimes I feel like that's us just sitting around, but we want our seat at the table. We already have, for most of us, most of the mature practices, you already have the seat at the table. Do you need that C-level sponsor to legitimize that or not? I don't know. But like the times that I've seen it applied, it's to people that shouldn't have had it.
Ideally, organizations are, the C-level leaders of, of different departments place the experience, at a very high regard, and there isn't a need for that. But I think that organizations, especially large companies in transition, who are really attempting to make a statement and need a strong leader to break down silos and to make people play nice and to bring the ugly truth of what's really happening, in the touch points between their product or application, their service, and their users, that it can serve a good purpose in those evolutions.
I think from my standpoint, it's about being an advocate for design. I think if a company, the way we know from the report, like a lot of companies don't even truly understand what design means. A lot will panic and bring in a very senior designer. And if that person doesn't have the right combination of maturity and kind of proven success behind them, then not only can they flounder, but they can cause a tremendous amount of damage to the organization as well. So I think, for me, my time at Disney, the exposure, I think the two groups, feature animation and Pixar, that concept of the chief creative officer is basically somebody globally raising the bar for the organization. So it's, they're not the ideas guy that's coming up with like the next big thing. It's about taking all of design and just collectively raising the bar through empowerment and just as much as necessary, reinforcing, repeating the mantras about the design in the organization. So I think it's important. But the role definition is even more important in that position.
Good question. All right, can we give a round of applause for our
And if you wouldn't mind, stick around. I know that UXPA people have some parting gifts for you as well.
Also, if you guys in the audience, because this is User Experience Professional Association, if you guys have any feedback for an event or have any ideas for future events, feel free to reach out to us on social media, email us, uxpa.ac.1@gmail. Got it. But thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Question or tweet it at us. Go find Warren.